Hello, hi, it's Irene, and I have not really been doing too many videos, and the reason why is because I want to give some identity not only for my businesses or for my efforts. I kind of wanted to separate the personal from business, and I just found that a lot of the information was not. I was not trying to have them run in. You know how they would say where ends meet or something like that. Well, the thing is yes, me the speaker, but each one of those things have its own identity, in regards to the conversation. So I was reviewing some older information. And as I was reviewing the information, I saw that, wow, was really, really wordy. And I think that at that time, that was the choices or the time that I had chose to say, you know what? Everything has its place. So it was also at that time where I began to kind of consolidate some of my accounts. I was like, okay, this is SMC, one is Lee, and then there's IR. Okay, so that's Irene Ratliff, Letter Enterprises and Street Meat Company. And I was just listening to some of the videos or the audios that I had made. And I was just like, sometimes when you're looking at yourself or whenever you're listening to uh, something that you're saying, and maybe your movies, I was like, wow, a lot of that stuff is interesting. I think the argument is just that. I think that I've been somewhat clear on the objective in regards to BB&D. I was reading some materials that I have, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." The same thing to talk about BB&D. So I think that the efforts is still genuine. The thing was is that I had wrote some information, and as I was writing it, it had asked me about volunteers. I said, "Well, sure." I would like a professional setting or surrounding. And I was like, oh, there's many, many phone calls. And as I had stated before, is that when you think about training or you getting employed, yes, I was scrolling through all those opportunities for employment. I was like, there's a job here, there's a job there. But anyway, I realized that seriously, you have to have training or have a dialogue or something so that you'll know what's going on and that you can ask many questions. There's a manual or something is provided so that you can understand it. You understand? So anyway, um, the other thing is that one of the things too is that my personal opinion, like I was listening to someone who's very famous in regards to their message. And then my, um, I don't want to say experience, but then the exposure about here it is um, me and my work and the direction that I wanted to go or the direction that I'm working on, that it wasn't fitting for, let's just say, um, SMC, where it was just direct in regards to my popular opinion or my gathered opinion about here it is some conversations or points. However, I do have conversation about chick, and so it has been somewhat um, like, well, Irene, well, how are you going to approach all those different things? Like, no, seriously. Matter of fact, I think I'm kind of put these different things in there in the categories. But for Street Meat Company, I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to go about having these conversations about chick? How do we go about or what we're going to do in regards to, let's say, policies? Because um, as an individual, yes, we could talk about all kinds of things. But then if I'm actually writing the material for SMC, then I have to approach it a little differently. So that means that when I'm writing grants and stuff like that, or I'm writing proposals, it's just that. So what it was is that for Chick, I'm like, wow, that really is just that, proposals, and along with proposals, grants. And I said, well, if I give that information to the legislator or maybe some lawyers, then what does it mean once they get it? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now I can write something and say, well, listen, this is my opinion about it. Matter of fact, I can even put it in a book. But what does it mean? Is it going to the right places and things of that nature? And I understood this early on, okay? Don't get me misunderstood. Because when you're talking about business or you're talking about any one subject, it doesn't matter the subject. You will actually have the conversation that's relative to law. You understand? And so as I was looking at some areas when I started to pursue, let's say, information, just gathering information here and there, I saw that the Department of Labor really have a lot of the cases that is relative to, let's say, human rights. It has cases on civil rights. It has cases on constitutional rights. So it has a lot of stuff about chick. I'm not saying outside of everything else in regards to departments, but they probably hear a lot more cases that are relative to those kind of complaints. The other thing was is that, again, when you're doing business, now we're able to look at certain things, and then as we pursue things, and if we're if it's being seen like it's being ostracized or something, then at that point, now you can say, okay, well, you know what? This is the reason why we have that. No different than intellectual properties. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now that you have intellectual properties, the thing is that whenever we're focusing on one thing and then not actually growing or developing in a subject, it just becomes that. Now I can send you this information, but then it's like, okay, well, once I actually send you the information, how is it fitting? And so that's the reason why I'm actually pursuing, here it is, that thing. Matter of fact, I even added membership, because when you're a part of a membership or you're participating with, say, with another organ or with another entity that has certain focuses, oh, it's clear. Uh, Even being a shareholder, because you go to shareholder meetings. When you're a member, you get invitations and you participate. So let's just say for a street meat company, and we have a membership with a labor union, and they're focusing on a policy, or we're looking at making sure that somewhere near art is actually part of the historical factors for Black people, because one of the things is just the enlightenment was, when you look at some of the older art books, you may see a story being told but with someone who is mixed, but not, here it is, Black people. You know what I mean? So now we're with the organization and we're saying, okay, well, listen, these are some of the things that we want to address. We have membership. We want to put this and make sure that this is inclusive too. It says something different. Really, you do. Matter of fact, we can write the government and write all the proposals and so on and so forth, but it may not be something that you will put all in one area where is your focus, but it is another organization's focus. ACLU is a good example of that too. You understand? So now, when we begin to look at, let's just say, those opportunities, that are there with not only other organizations, but also what we have working with our government and our governments. Another thing too is also the banks. Okay, so the banks, the same thing. I'm not gonna go there. That's a whole other subject. So anyway, um, and so that's the thing. How do we get all that stuff going and getting it across? Chick. So what I had explained to them was is that our frontal work, the frontal work, is the community development to talk about celebration, which is 4th of July and Kwanzaa. And so somebody was like, oh, boop, boop. There's a lot of people who are unaware about a lot of things. And yes, that's inclusive to the Constitution. Chick. Okay, so that's inclusive to Chick, and that's also inclusive to, let's say, the celebration Kwanzaa. But for me to explain that, this is the reason why I have the opportunities, or let's just say the platform, to say let's meet, let's have conversation. Because with conversation, not only are we able to talk about BB&D, but we're able to talk about 4th of July, and we're able to talk about Kwanzaa. You know, and interesting because a thought comes to be like, oh, okay, well, this is the reason why this exposure was there. So what? I'm already with these people. Now, I may not agree with, here it is, some things, because somewhere in there's a disconnect from reality. And that reality is, why are so many of us in agreement with that? We ain't gonna go there. Why so many people are not in agreement with that? We're not gonna go there. Anyway, that's the reason point of conversations. You understand? So explaining Chick, explaining Kwanzaa, explaining the reason why we want to celebrate the 4th of July. And readily I realized that a lot of those things are tied together from Street Meat Company's perspective. And the reason why is not because someone would say, or you'd be like, oh, okay, well let's see if she really Hugh. I'm like, well, yes, honey, I am. Yes. From yesteryears. So that being said, is that they have the conversation about Chick. To have the purpose of why we want to focus on the 4th of July and the purpose of why we want to focus on Kwanzaa. And then that application to build community, or to, but really to tell you the truth, it is a community development, because now we're asking more than one person for support. We're out in the community, we're asking for funding, we're meeting different people, we're participating, and so collectively these things come together. It is a community development. Well, Irene, well, why have you chosen? Well, you know what? The thing is that I actually participate with meetings, and the clarity about one thing or the other, I realize that it is this conversation. It becomes organization conversation, meaning you participate to learn more about what you may not understand. So for me, the thought is, if I'm going to say knocking door to door, and I'm saying, well, you know what? I would like your support. And somebody said, well, explain and tell me more. It may not be as thorough or detailed, because the thing is that a lot of that information is right there readily in front of you. You can just search it on the internet. You understand? So someone says, well, listen, we could talk about this person and that person. And I said, well, that would be the key point of us understanding many, many different things. And somebody can read the Constitution and be like, well, here does it have slave and master in it? And I said, okay. And then somebody said, well, listen, this material that says that the Kayawida are here, it is the most of the books that come from black people. Okay. I think that would probably be the point. But what do you think about here it is our voting rights? Well, that's what I think I'm talking about 4th of July. And I'm going to let you know right now, it is in Atlanta, Georgia. How I want to approach that, though, is that is the thing. Yes, we're going to be asking for support, not only from unions or organizations or regular people in the community, because they're going to be the ones that make it happen. The same thing. Hey, Byron, you're going to go. Well, you know what? I think that someone else can want to say, well, listen, we have followed you, Irene. Then, yes, readily, I think that those people who said that, then the credibility of Street Meat Company and Irene Ratliff as president, administrator, executive director, you know, because it does says quite like that, president and executive director. The thing is that I chose to use administrator. That's all of that. The reason why is just thought it was just simple to say it that way. My money wasn't flowing for me for me as representing my organization to say, oh, well, somebody I meet. Oh, well, here it is, president. I'm administrator. Matter of fact, I got it really simple. Just say, oh, customer service. I wasn't down in it. The thing was just that I know that I was doing field work. You understand? So anyway, yes, I probably will start going door to door. Look out, look for me. The thing is as I said before, yes, you would think that here it is, that point is there in regards to, yes, we've been following Irene Ratliff, and I need resources um, for not only the events, but also for the work and the effort so that it could be a collective work, okay, and that the collaborations is there. And being involved with other organizations. I think that was part of the mission statement. I kind of changed a little bit, where we do want to participate not only with government, but also other organizations. But then as I started going to different places, I was gleed to find out that some places were free. Other places, they wanted membership money. And then there was exclusion when you didn't have that kind of money. And it came to that point where the thought was, well, what is it that I'm going to learn from that organization? Because there's a lot of things I want to say. And at that point, I was like, well, if, actually, I did not create the questionnaire at that time, because the questionnaire is focused on Kwanzaa, Chick, and BB&D. And so readily I knew that whatever those subjects or those questions were, that there was a place for people to go. And yes, there was Faith Society, because the conversations to talk about, let's say, relationships, intimate relationships, and familiar relationships, there was say. And that became another entity. So really, yes, to tell you the truth, there's probably three of them. There's Kwanzaa, there's Chick, and there's Say Society. Because when we start looking at SMC, the body of SMC, that is now the focus on Chick. Well, I say Chick, but it's Fourth of July celebration in Kwanzaa. So it became where we want to focus on policies and how these policies of all four of those things and support of Black people. Okay. Um, yes, the conversation of all is there. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go back into one thing real quick. The reason why the all factor is there is because I was reviewing something about LGBT, the lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual community. And I said, well, why does it matter to me? I don't care about your sexual preference, right? But what happens is that if somebody voice slurs, now it has an identifiable support. But then it becomes an all factor because we don't want nobody to suffer that. That's why it becomes all. I was like, you're right. No different than here it is how we may see some excessive force. It just seemed like it was just all one color. But readily, they're right. We want to be able to address it. And that becomes the point. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I said that. It was the slurs, and then you wanted to say something that made it identifiable. And so now it's a problem, and there's the backup. And so that's how I see SMC. But then, as I just said early on about the business side of it, that almost everything that you go into, you'll find a subject where you will want not only insurance, but you will want to make sure that policies and your rights and laws are in place to make sure that your stuff is protected. All this policing and went somewhere else. And I understand policies and police, but it was somewhere else when you're interfering now on, let's just say, personal property, or here it is, personal real property. So anyway, when we start looking at businesses, we know that now there's a few things we want to protect. And a lot of those things, it requires an application. Okay, so if we wanted to look at copyright, we want to fill all that information out, submit it, and then, hey, pay that fee. Yeah, that's a membership. Understand what you understand? Okay, that's a membership. Anything you have to pay every year is a membership. And that would be the same thing, renewing your car registration. You don't pay your car registration, you don't get your decal, you are not driving. That's a privilege. You understand where I'm coming from? Insurance. That's a membership. I know. It just be like that. But anyway, when we look at, let's say, the scope of that conversation, human rights identify art and economics. So when we begin to look at, let's say, and the reason I wrote copyright, or mentioned copyright, is because now that becomes an intellectual property. So wow, I ain't gonna fib to you. The field is huge, honey. It's a big world, okay? So now when we start looking at certain things, we can start investigating and researching all kinds of stuff and doing this. Hey, how are we gonna get there? To let people know that we're with you. One. And I was just like, wow. So now if we're looking at our businesses, things that we talk about under BB&D, well, readily that point is yes, Irene Ratliff want to focus on those things. And the reason why is because when we're building that and people have understanding about it, then they'll know that we're there to not only support them under whatever those things are, right? Whether we're talking about our being, or here it is, our intellectual property, or work, or art, or whatever. The thing is that right now it's just that, okay? So when you begin to look at, let's say, art, and you start identifying, let's say, drawings, you want to do a community development project where now we're talking about housing. We want to put in some businesses. Now that's economics. Now at that point, those things require, let's say, protecting. Here it is, your idea. Now it's going into business. Now we have to go and ask banks, or we're asking the government to even care for ourselves. And it's okay, because that would be the point of why you're doing it. Because funding is there, and you're going to ask the government or the banks for funding. But somebody told me about money. And so when I begin to look at here, there's those points about money. It's like, well, you know what? You know we need it. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, that's the reason why when we start looking at, let's just say, the bigger picture, and a lot of people, they have it. A lot of businesses and organizations, they're doing it, you know. So what it was for me, I wasn't quite sure, like all the details. Well, I don't want to say quite sure. There was a lot of things I wanted to do. Matter of fact, I was looking at some of that stuff. I was all over the place. I want to do this, I want to do that, yeah. And then once I started to actually start doing the research on it, I was just like, I don't think this is just like solely all the things that I just want to do by itself. I'm like, I know I really want to get, no, literally. You know, I think that once we get over this hump, but I really do want to see, here it is, Kwanzaa at the Getty. I think I've been talking about the Getty for years. So now that I'm writing them, you understand? Now that we're looking at art, yes, you're right. I don't know if we really have, we do not. I have not seen it. Don't give me the fibbing, but I have not seen it, whether they're writing grants or we look at each one of the states and let's say if they've taken a collection of black art, or I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I just say I have not seen it. But I've asked people, well, well, who's doing art this way? So anyway, I met this gentleman and he says, Irene, I've been doing art and I actually have a collection. I have collections in here. I'm like, who's taking pictures of these things and put it in a book and put it in a name and all other kind of stuff? Well, that's something that I guess we can collectively work on. I think that research might be a good project. No, literally. Shit to make you go home. Anyway, I'm like, matter of fact, I'm like, what is social change? I'm really thinking, I'm like, what is social change? What does it mean to me? Anyway, so I was like, wow, when I go to the library, and I am a friend of the library, I have not rarely seen that information. Matter of fact, I probably will, take the time to go and look, just do some tutorials, just to see if I can find, books on that kind of information. Is it a key point for me? No. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of shit to do. I mean, really, literally. Do I think I want to? No. Do I think I want to? No. I think that I want to focus on, let's just say, us focusing on the celebration and the community development. Like I said, I had to kind of pick and choose those things. And the same thing with okay, well, what is the business aspect of it? Matter of fact, I was looking at some information, and what it was a gentleman in this area where I was staying when I was exploring. And he said, you know what, I want an auditorium here. Right? And so I said, oh, you want an auditorium? So, this is, I could do that. Right? I could do that, I did. So I had inquired information for him. So interestingly, I was someplace, and I was like, because this became a really good, a key point that, in the argument or the conversation, that we were not at a time seeing, let's say, professional swimmers in the Olympics who were, people of color, and that a lot of black people didn't know how to swim. So anyway, I went someplace and no, there was not black people there, but I was like, well, I think I need a swimming pool. And no, we were not near no water or nothing either, you know. And so, but this other place, I was like, oh, this would be perfect, you know. Now, if I was to pursue that, um, getting the details and everything for the swimming pool, now that meant that I would be applying for money or putting a lot of focus on, let's say, that particular project. Whereas if we were in a group, and having, several meetings, then that would have been shared work. You know what I mean? So for me, you understand? Yes, um, to host conversations on BBAD. Okay. Now hosting those conversations on BB&D and presenting the questionnaire. Now I can learn what other people, let's say, time, their available time, how we're able to implement things. Some people do, they have free time. But for my efforts, my key efforts, it is planning those events, it is writing information, and it is looking at all available opportunities for me to implement policies or having the opportunity to have those kind of conversations that are relative to chick. Now, in regards to, let's say, the business side of it, not so much about being obligated, because I'm committed. The thing is that I was like, well, if I'm going to focus on, let's just say, and then what it was is that when I started looking around that particular area about it, now I'm no longer at this location where I was, where the gentleman wanted to find or have a swimming pool in the area, because what it was is I had did a neighborhood nexus. Like I was literally looking around, like why he wanted a swimming pool there, and which swimming pools were around. Like now I'm looking at the market. And I presented some information. I said, well, don't you know that we have like maybe 4 or 5 swimming pools in the neighborhood? No, seriously. We had like 4 or 5 other swimming pools. And did I didn't give up on it. I mean, there was information for here it is, that gentleman. I was like, well, is it feasible? Or should we promote swimming, to these different locations? Maybe even charter a bus or something, to get kids swimming or whatever. Anyway, but for, going back into that thought, it was like, okay, well, one moment, if we're looking at one thing or the other, then we need to kind of be, focused, on making sure that we have some things in place. Okay, another conversation. Now, I was talking about business, like doing a community project, doing an auditorium as a community project. Now, I was talking to this gentleman, and I was talking to this gentleman. No, I'm about to go here, okay? And he was like, he says, black. Well, first of all, he's already giving me a conversation about mental, but then he was like, you black women and this and that. Lord have mercy. I said, one, black, 1, 2, woman. But for real though, hold up. I just asked you not to go about, if you, listen, you know how many women are in the world? I'm not even have to ask, well, what color is this black? No, but for real though. And he was just like, oh, well, this black woman, I don't want a black woman, and the black woman it is, and she and that. I'm like, you know how many beautiful black women and all our grandian selves? No, negative. I met people and I have not liked some things that people have done, but I don't want to rule out here it is men. You understand where I'm coming from? I don't want to rule out here it is because, I know Ariel, and here it is, these other people who want to call them to be like this, all white people, or it's all mestizas, or it's all negative. But after you was telling me all your mental story, I just wanted to say that I did. I had a, I mean, don't get me misunderstood. Oh, yes, honey, we know about your it is that story, but we ain't gonna go there. But I think that the exposure to just kind of learn what was going on around the world, and just looking at ourselves, looking at me, I was just like, it's just a whole lot of stuff. I ain't gonna feel it just really, really is. I said, dude, I'm already rapping with you, but let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck how mental and crazy it is. I started sending him information. I was just like, well, listen, it's like that. It made me cry. Anyway, um, so again, the identity of SMC in the different places, because we start talking about our relationships, we start talking about domestic violence and things of that nature. That's say. Yeah. We start talking about that's say society. Um, things that are relative to one thing or the other, because domestic violence, somebody you in relationship, somebody start fighting you. There's a whole lot of other things that goes and tie into all of that. It's just the truth. It's like, wow, I didn't want to look at it like that, but when I started to, and look for the fun things, do the funyuns for Say Society, I was went a lot of different places, and I was asking, and I was in another country, and I was asking, hey, well, what about this, and how you this, and then for them, there was like, well, there was some reservation, not because they didn't like the idea, but they were just speaking culturally. Um, if you look at, and I'm like, well, what would be the largest difference? Well, in some of the places, maybe the conversation of union, so I was just like, oh, okay. So anyway, that's say. Um, so I mean, went to the health department. I was with the lesbian LGBTQ community. I was with the police. I was just following up. Was like, wow, and that was just for say. And so when you start looking at relationships, right? And something is crossing, here it is, let's say the being, you being, here it is, you. Now it requires safety. Now, when you start thinking about safe sex, matter of fact, I was inclusive to say safe sessions, and the reason why to gay people, because this gentleman, he came to me, he said, well, what about here it is to us, I'm gay, what if it's, just two men? And I went like this. I was like, oh, excuse me, that's gonna be fun. So I opened it up. Say, yes, gay people too. Matter of fact, no. I didn't say gay people. I said couples. I said couples. And and the reason, and I said couples. I said, yes. These are for the sessions, right? And and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Not to test people negative. Because here it is, we went through this testing and this, all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like, it's just unbelievable. But um, it was that thought of inclusion to say, well, yes, if somebody was like, circulating, and then they come to a table where it was lesbian or it was, men anyway. I was just like, or women, or two women, two men. So I was just like, yes, I think I like the idea. The other thing was when it was like, well, what about people who are not promiscuous? I don't want to use that word, but people who agree with polygamy. And I said, well, if there was, a mom and her son, or a mom and her daughter, or father and his son, father. Because I was like, this is for real. I mean, really can be. Because I was like, well, wow, when you start thinking about it, what would be wrong for a father to be with his daughter and be like, well, I'm part of this session with you, and to meet somebody who would be like, oh, okay, yes, I want a young woman and blah, 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 blah. I was like, for parents, they could be like, oh, okay, well, listen, hey, she wants to go to school. I mean, this thoughts was for real. I was like, yes. Oh, yes, that's inclusive too. 18 and older. However, the ticket price is the same. $100. It may be a little bit more. But it was like, well, yes, if they're 18 years old and, let's say, somebody coming with their mom or coming with their dad, I was just like, oh, that was a good mix. I love it. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like for real, keep it real. You have somebody in here, they be wanting somebody, a young man, young woman, and they can care for it. Here it is, their college education, and groom them. So anyway, I mean, it was just kind of detailed, and well, not, it was open in regards to couples. It was open as it related to how we was going to move those sessions, and that was say society. But like I said, I was like all over, just talking to different people, and I was just like, well, you know what? If we're looking at, say, and start looking at the exits, then there may be people. Well, no, not maybe. There'll be people who have their key points. Now, their commitment would have been how committed they would have been to make certain things manifest for our organization, that kind of membership among the people. So more or less, um, that meant that we that was all by itself room to build it up. But if somebody's saying, well, Irene, what does it say? Well, I can explain to you. Initially, I did women of the say. And I was like, I don't want just all women. Sure. You know what I mean? Like that, seriously. And then I said, okay, we're going to do Lilium of the say. Lilium. So there's Lilium and Lily. Okay, so it really start going into like different places. And then when I did Lily of the say, or I'm sorry, Lilium of the say, I was like, okay, well, if we do Lilium of the say, now we can have women, we can start looking at certain things. But then I said, well, what about the men, right? So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna need the men. Um, and so from that point, I just said, you know what? We're just gonna call it Say Society. And Say Society, C say C. C say C. That's Say Society. C say C. And it has something that is an extension of family. Okay. And so when we start talking about it, very intimate, very, very, very intimate. Matter of fact, I encourage people to go on Facebook, Say Society. Please click follow or participate. But not only that, um, I don't know. That's the thing. Are we going to be here? Are we going to be here? Are we gonna be... Yes, I want to. When I think about people who are running politics, or people who are salespeople, or people who ride trucks and all that kind of stuff, they're in many, many, many places. I've I only said three. And for that, I ain't going to be. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But I don't know. I'm kind of indecisive about doing that. Yeah, I want to, but The thing is that not so much about getting out because, like I said, I'm committed. I'm doing Kwanzaa, Los Angeles. And then readily the turnaround with that is 4th of July. I will go into 4th of July a little later, but it's just true, right? So I think that maybe perhaps I spend a lot more time talking about, hey, where we're going to be. And matter of fact, say sessions could be once a month. I could do it once a month. But the thing is, it's a fee for that. It ain't free. Somebody was like, why were you trying to do all this stuff for free food? I said, Saturday and Sunday, we at the park. Yes, we can have some sandwiches. And yes, you don't want to hear this to line the food to one thing or the other. But all the rest of those days, it costs money. Really, it do. But at the park, you think of family and this, that, and the other. And yes, we could bring in some potluck or something. I don't know about that either, but you know what I'm saying. Somewhere in there, we know we're just going to have an effort where we feeding the community or that we having a family banquet or something. So I am committed for those two events. They are our front. The reason why is because it is community development. It is community development. Um, the thing is that yes, I'm going to work on BB&D, but Save Society, SMC, Irene Ratliff. Matter of fact, Irene Ratliff which is me. There's some things that I'm working on, and I don't want to sit there in the spaces. But I heard good news, and then I heard news in the middle. Like, well, how's it gonna be? What we gonna do? And so the gentleman said, "Well, listen, you gonna sell some property? We can do it, but you just do all the work. It's all you." And I said, I heard that. And it's like, I guess here it is. There are some online education. I'm just saying. I thought the same thing. Oh, gosh. How we going to get there? Uh, when they talk about that little branch off that broken tree. And then some boy said, boy, you see him? We got all that goddamn money. I'm broke. Oh, glory, glory, glory. So anyway, yes, we could do that maybe once a month. I don't know. That's a lot of work to go tie into that. You just think there'll be an easy pop-up, but you have to pay money. Um, that thought about reserving that, and that was the thing about society or the sessions, that it was travel and going to different places that maybe you haven't gone, or was different spots and stuff like that, different places. And also, really, to tell you the truth, getting people to travel outside of the country. And I was just like, well, we really do have a lot of travel clubs. We do. There's different ones. They doing all kinds of stuff. So I was like, well, is it another travel club? Well, no, I've already said it clearly that it is the most intimate, or the intimate side of, let's say, for family. It is a combination, but it is family oriented, relationship oriented, and things of that nature. All right, what else? Maybe I will spend more time talking about each one of those subjects. I was just kind of like, hey, about a little bit of everything. Like I said, it's been a while since I've actually made a video that talk about any of those things. And as I said before, for me to focus on, let's just say, racism or colorism, we know that it's there, we know that it exists, but I didn't want to kind of look at it on that personal side where it's black and white. I really wanted to address those issues when we know we had something that was tangible. So for Chick, that would probably be it. But for me to be like, oh, I ain't gonna be, we got a lot of people doing that, and I don't like those people who wanted me to. I ain't gonna be. I don't like how somebody else wanted to change. Here it is, my efforts to something where it was just that, and then want to sell. Here it is, some other woman and then be like, well, look at you. I was like, this shit fucked up. I ain't gonna flip to you. It is. I ain't gonna, the truth. So when I look at here, it is somebody who wanted to kind of want me to just kind of focus on those things, and then I didn't get anybody to have the conversation to talk about BB&D. I'm upset because now we're talking about here this identity. So anyway, I'm getting a little upset. Just that thought about that. BB&D, Say Society, BB&D, Business Building and Development. I was like, oh, our themes, our mottos, business building and development, um, Say Society, Word, Work, Witness, Kite, Knowledge, Intelligence, Trades, Talents, Education, Street Meat Company, 4th of July. And yes, here it is, our foundation or the base of it. I am applying is chick. And then, our frontal work are the things that we're working for in the community. And, we're asking for support. But all the things that are there in the middle, phone calls. Oh, yeah, one moment. Housing. This particular piece that I had wrote, they asked me about volunteers. I said, well, sure. Not only do we have the Starving Artists Initiative, but then it's also the housing. And what I had asked them was about their community. Matter of fact, I was just reading on something, and they said that there's a community reinvestment act or something like that. Well, they're closing down the local bank that's readily like within walking distance. Well, actually, we have one. For us to be in this area, we probably should have more, but here nor there. Um, and I was like, well, yeah, I was like, well, yes, with your volunteers, we're able to do a whole lot of things. Matter of fact, I would like to find out how many people does your bank actually, when you're borrowing money or whatever, or you're lending money for businesses, that would be inclusive to SBA, the Small Business Administration. How many of those are black businesses or manufacturing or farming? And the reason I say that is because now we're able to approach it where we can, not only do partnership, but probably even look at expanding their business. Because that was like one of the main things for me, my personal interest was, how is our economy? We were hearing about all these billions and trillions of dollars, but how is that circulating outside of, let's say, the larger government? Well, this is something that I had learned that that's the reason why people have organizations. Now, there's different kind of organizations. That's why people have churches. A lot of those things circulate. People, they have their budget, they have their expense, they have their different stuff. And now within their organization or within their corporation or whatever, that's how their economy is growing. And, this is how certain things are manifesting and blah, 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 blah. Now, in regards to, let's say, now the larger scope of the economy, now we can just now look at countries. Okay, so you can look at countries. You can look at when you're looking at the larger part of, taxes, and anyway, it was just really in deep, in deep. So it became, well, what will be the mutual benefit? Let's just say for members. Well, for Street Meat Company, we look for donors, and what is available is the classes. And the reason why I didn't do membership was it had something to do not only with paperwork, but at the time, but it has something to do with where Street Meat Company knows just the truth. Because if I was to put membership there and then yet readily, let's say, any information, even though we're a public charity, it was like, well, you donating because you know that I'm out here working, right?